So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me. simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you're just joining us on the X Zone Broadcast Network or on Simul Radio or on Simul TV, channel 21, or to any of our affiliated networks, Talkstar, Mutual Broadcast Network, or iTunes, iHeart, welcome, X Zone Nation. Always great having you with us. My guest this hour, X Zone Nation, is Thomas Razzeto. He is one of the freshest voices offering guidance and enlightenment and spiritual awakening. He writes in simple, clear English, and this makes it easy for people to understand these very deep subjects. Thomas has taught a class for the Center for Lifelong Learning through Santa Barbara City College about his book, Living the Paradox of Enlightenment. He has spoken publicly numerous times, both in person and on the radio, and in September 2012 he spoke for the prestigious lecture series Mind and Supermind, which is run by Santa Barbara City College. Graham Hancock selected Thomas as his Author of the Month for March 2012 and again for August 2014. Thomas has also written about the famous magician, nice going, Rob, nice cover. Let's try that one again. Mind wanted to go one way, mouth wanted to go the other, and as usual, mouth wins. But let's try that again. Sorry about that, Thomas. Graham Hancock selected Thomas as his Author of the Month for March 2012 and again for August 2014. Thomas has also written about the famous magician and escape artist Harry Houdini and the claim that Harry was able to get a secret message to his wife Bess after Harry died on Halloween 1926. If you'd like more information about our guest this hour, his website is infinitymystical.com. And joining me now is Thomas Razzeto. And Thomas, welcome back to the X Zone, sir.
Thank you so much, Rob, for having me again.
Listen, I have to ask you a question. There are so many people out there these days, and I'm asking you this because I've had the pleasure of talking to you before, and you're a down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
There are so many people out there who are trying to bamboozle people into the different realities, the different frequencies, the different dimensions, the different vibrations, the different planets, the different this, that, and the other thing. And the internet has opened up a a direct line from, from thought to septic tank. How do people who are actually seeking the truth, how do they find it? I mean, besides listening to us here on the X Zone and knowing that you're, how to contact you, but how do people in general find the truth, and how do they dispel the people who are out there who really don't know what the hell they're talking about?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question, because for myself personally, I get a pretty good read on people.
Yeah.
But I understand that most people really don't have that ability. And what really helps me, and maybe you being in radio might feel similarly about this, when I hear someone's voice, I start to get a real tune in on who they are as a person, whether they're a selfish person, whether they're a greedy person, or whether they're a helpful person. So when I hear your voice, I can tell that you're a helpful person. This isn't all about Rob and the big spotlight on Rob. This is about helping making the world a better place.
Exactly.
And so if you can, so if you can see that in this other person, even though they might be a little bit, shall I say, going down the wrong path unbeknownst to them, someone may have a kind heart and be trying to help people. And you have to be tuned in to the fact that they may be taking you somewhere that eventually you go, I really don't fit there, but for a while I did.
Yeah.
And be willing to change from one to the other. When I was a young boy, I was raised Catholic. And what I really tuned into that was teaching you and inspiring you to be a good person. That's what I resonated with. But by the time I became a young adult, there were so many questions in that religion that left me kind of wondering. I think I'll try it alone with nothing. I don't know what I'm going to find, but I'm just going to drop that, and I'm going to try something else. And so it's been a long journey for me in various different ways. And if you want, I'll give you more on that, but that's a good point.
Well, let me just say this, and this is coming from my heart. I'm glad there are people like you, Thomas, out there. I'm glad there are people like Graham Hancock out there. And I'm very glad there are other people that I've had the opportunity of having on the show who I know for a fact are out there doing what they're doing to make this world a better place.
Yeah.
So I thank you for the great work you do, my friend.
Thanks again.
Listen, let's get back to the crux of this. Let's talk about the field of spirit communication. Why do you find this so interesting?
Well, everybody has that burning question. What happens when you die? Is there an afterlife, And so, of course, you hear all kinds of stories about all kinds of things. And one of the subject matters is spirit communication through psychic mediums.
Yeah.
And I remember a man named Dr. Gary Swartz. He's with the University of Arizona. And his book, The Afterlife Experiments, came out, I believe it was 2002. And I remember hearing him interviewed by Art Bell way back then, And I thought, this is a pretty interesting guy. He's very scientific. He wasn't a believer. He had some experiences. He put things in the laboratory, and he changed his mind. So I'm going to go get his book out of the library and read the thing. And I read it, and this guy has a Ph.D. from Harvard.
Yeah, he's got a real
psychology.
He's got a real PhD. He just didn't go on the internet, pay $100 and some odd bucks and get it. Yeah,
exactly. This is not a store-bought PhD. This is a real PhD, and he went on to be a professor of psychiatry and psychology at Yale, and he had some other responsibilities at Yale too. So this guy is no slouch. He's no dummy. He's hardworking, and I don't think he's pushing an agenda. So when I read that book, I just found it very convincing that there is the possibility, certainly doesn't prove that there aren't fakes, but there are real people that are working as mediums and getting in touch with spirits.
So as a believer, the Houdini case, give us your take on that.
Yes, as a believer, it's easy to say that the Houdini case is just going to be one among many. So it's not trying to make the Houdini case the first breakthrough case. Like, this is it. Boy, it's locked down. You're really going to get the nuts and bolts, and, it's really going to be tight. No, but if you already believe in spirit communication, you can go, you know what? I bet this thing worked. Let's look at the evidence, both pro and con.
But the Houdini case really isn't that clear, is it?
Now, and part of that is because the evidence points both ways. When you look at some of the things some of these people say, including Mrs. Houdini, at one point she's saying very strong things about how she believed it was true, and at other points she'll say that it wasn't true at all. And let's just talk about one of those things where she was interviewed shortly after it happened. By one of these newspapers. Let's see what it is. She gave an interview with the New York Times, and this happened just days after this famous seance, which we'll get into more of the details later. But this is what she said. She's referring to the words that came forth through the psychic medium Arthur Ford. They are the exact words left for me by Harry, and I'm absolutely convinced that my husband talked to me and that there is life beyond the grave. That is very strong, positive support.
But why wouldn't Harry talk to his wife directly?
Because she doesn't have the psychic ability to communicate with those on the other side. So she's going to need a medium to work in between. But she did later try to do that. But the point I was going to make is that those words could be genuine, and yet someone tricked her and got the words to Ford ahead of time. And so she would think that she had been in touch with Harry, and that she would think that she was convinced that her husband talked to her from beyond the grave. But it isn't true. So we need to back up a little bit and go into that. But let's take it one step at a time.
All right, let's go into it one step at a time when we come back from this commercial break, Thomas. And thanks for being with us. And by the way, as of tomorrow is Halloween. 82 years ago, Houdini passed on. Wow. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with our guest of this hour, Thomas Razzeto. And his website is infinitelymystical.com. And this is the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X-Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern, right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our affiliates around the world, including the Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, iHeartRadio, and then, of course, Simul Radio and Simul TV. On Simul TV, we are channel 21. And for more information on Simul TV and how you can actually watch the X-Zone TV channel and the great programming we have there, www.simultv.com. Thomas and I return on the other side, continuing our story on Harry Houdini. Don't go away. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomena, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light. Exonation, Thomas Razzeto is our special guest. His website is infinitelymystical.com. All right, Thomas, let's get back to Harry Houdini, because I would say 99.95% of all our listeners know about Harry Houdini. And you know, being here in Ontario, I go down to Niagara Falls quite often to see our daughter, who's a manager of a property down there, a hotel. And we always stop by, especially around Halloween, to the Harry Houdini Museum down there. And why do you think 82 years later after he passed on, he's still very popular?
That is quite remarkable. Well, first of all, he's an incredibly colorful personality, very much a showman. And I had no idea that he was actually, at the time that he was alive, at the peak of the activity, which I think was all the way up until he died, he was considered the #1 entertainer in the world, the highest paid entertainer in the world. I didn't realize that. And he had such a showmanship to him that if he ever heard of any kind of report about one of the events or one of his stunts, he was very, very fit athlete. He wasn't very tall. He was very strong, though. He was an excellent swimmer. He could dislocate his shoulders to get out of those straitjackets and things. You know, he could use his toes like fingers. So he would be able to do all kinds of phenomenal things, but sometimes the reported story would be even more phenomenal than what actually happened. And he said, when that happens, always be sure to report the more phenomenal thing. So he always took advantage of really good press.
So, you know, we were talking before we went to the break about how his wife was with a medium, and the message that the medium gave her was basically word for word on what the message was that Harry said that he would send her from the other side, and she was convinced that it was in fact a communication from Harry, just to find out that it was basically a sham, because the medium already knew what the secret message was. Were there any other cases like that where people tried to fraudulently work their magic to prove that there was communication from the other side, or that anything that would influence Mrs. Houdini?
Well, I don't think that Arthur Ford actually had the message ahead of time. I think he did get it through spirit communication, but I can't prove it. But the kind of the bridge between Arthur Ford and Bess Houdini, his wife, first started to come together in around 1928, when Harry's mother had also passed away. She had passed away in 1913. And the spirit of Harry's mother barged into a session that Arthur Ford was doing with his own clients. Now, Arthur Ford already was a reasonably well-established psychic medium and had a practice, and people would come to him, and he wasn't looking for attention. And another point is that Harry Houdini and his wife, they were not believers. And it wasn't just that they weren't believers. They were very vocal about the fact that spirit communication was fraudulent. However, when the mother passed away in 1913, Harry did give a genuine effort to try and find psychic mediums that would be able to bring her messages to him. And he was looking for one word. Before she passed away, they had a conversation that if they were to be able to communicate over this barrier between the spirit world and the physical world, that she would bring the world forgive. And so Harry went to these psychic mediums to see if anyone would bring her spirit forward and this one-word message, forgive, which wasn't encoded in any way. And he met with psychic mediums that were all frauds. They all researched the subject ahead of time, found out little pieces that they could put on the table and make it seem like they were getting this material from psychic means or spiritual means rather than from ordinary investigative means. And this got Harry mad, because it wasn't just that they were tricking people, it's that these guys were actually trying to cut into, on occasion, people's inheritances when loved ones passed over. So he started to engage in a really strong expose of these fake mediums. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but we can.
Oh, sure, please, yeah.
Yeah. What he would do is he would have these assistants, and these mediums were traveling mediums. They would travel around, because if you just sit in one spot, you're going to burn out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You go to new places, get fresh people to come to your sessions. So they would come to town, and he would send his assistants out and say, go check out the show and see what's happening, and then we'll find a spot in the show where, the lights will be down low, but people can still kind of see, and the medium is supposedly levitating some object through the air, or some kind of trick that when the lights are unexpectedly turned on, that a photographer can take a picture and the medium can be exposed as a fraud. Once they found a spot in the show that would fit, Harry would show up, but he would wear a disguise because he was very well known. He would show up with a disguise and a photographer from a newspaper, and they would get the guy that controlled the lights in on their side, and at that particular point in the show, they would turn on the light, and everyone would see that the guy was a fraud. The photographer would take a picture, and the medium would go, what's going on? Who are you? And he would take off his mask, and he would announce, I am Harry Houdini, and it was quite the show. But these guys, I think, these fake mediums, I think they communicated amongst themselves, and they kind of started to say, hey, this Houdini guy, man, he's really raining in our parade, so what we need to do is get him to back off. And I think that they might have, I have no real proof, that they might have actually paid this young collegiate boxer to actually punch Harry Houdini in the stomach that time when he was up in Canada. And I think they were trying to say, just back off, Harry, man. We're not messing around with your stuff. You get out of our way, and everything will be fine. And they just wanted to rough him up. But that's just my thought.
But how did that work for them?
What do you mean?
Yeah, like we all know that, that punch was ultimately the cause of the death of Houdini. But do you think that charlatanism still reigns today in the world of psychic mediums?
I think so. And as Harry would do, he would, and his wife together, would have shows where they basically just said, look, we're going to do a seance, but we're not doing anything supernatural. But we're not going to show you how these tricks are done. We're just going to tell you right up front, nothing supernatural is going on. And they would replicate many of these things that people see. So he was trying to educate them and say, don't be so gullible. Just don't be so gullible.
We used to go, when the X-Zone started 20-some-odd years ago, my God, we'd go to psychic fairs on live remotes. We do the show from these events, and of course,
fun.
we'd also be promoting the radio station that we were at the time. But I stopped doing that because, at a psychic fair, if anybody has never been to one, please don't. You're just going to waste your money. What they do is they usually go into a long hall and they put tables along the outer rim of the walls. And then in the middle of the hall, they have what they consider to be the premier psychics. And I would see people go from one psychic to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and then they'd stop and leave. It took me a couple of these events to figure out what was going on. They would go from psychic to psychic to psychic to psychic until they heard what they wanted to hear. And once they heard what they wanted to hear, they left. There was an occasion on this show, oh my gosh, had to be 12, 14 years ago, where a medium came on, and she said, Rob, I've got a message for you from your sister. Can I talk to you about it on air? I've got nothing to hide from my audience, so I said, sure.
Yeah.
She said, Rob, your sister is telling me that she loves you, she misses you, and to know it's her. She is tall, she has blonde hair, blue eyes, and she is your younger sister. And you miss her, and this and that and the other thing. And I let her go for about 5 minutes.
Oh,
and then I said, I've got some good news and some bad news for you. I said, the good news was, it's a great story. The bad news is, I don't have a sister.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
Bang.
Yeah, this is a really psychic... I took a class in parapsychology when I was here at the university in Santa Barbara, and I was a little surprised. I didn't realize it at the time, but the teacher actually was a visiting professor. He was quite well known. I forget where he was from. But anyway, we used a textbook, and in there were certain experiments that they talked about, and one of them was mind over matter. You know, the little balls that you drop down from the top, and it would hit a little peg, and it would go to the left or the right, and the left and the right, and it would keep hitting more and more pegs, and you were trying to make all of them go to the left or all of them go to the right. And, you know, the results of this are always statistical. You can't say, oh, there's the effect, you know, because it could have, by pure chance. And then when it went to these psychic messages, sometimes the messages are just clearly from left field, like there's no way this is even close to being true. And yet the psychic is like, but it's such a strong feeling that this is true. So you still got to drive your own boat, and you still got to make your own calls, you know. So I don't want to hand people off to psychics and say, let them run your life. Pay them lots of money.
Exactly, and we'll continue this conversation on the other side of the news. Exonation Thomas Razzeto is our special guest this hour. His website is infinitively.mystical.com. And this is the X Zone. You all know that because you're all psychic. And we come to you Monday through Friday from, wow, lady in Brazil got it, 10 o'clock at night, and another lady in Australia got our finishing time at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm just kidding with you. Right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Send me your emails, as well as the hate mail that you usually send me. X-Zone at XZoneRadioTV.com, and Thomas and I will be back as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology right here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God, love one another, Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Exonation, Thomas Razzeto is our special guest this hour, www.infinitelymystical.com. Thomas, why do you think in the year 2018 people still believe in psychics? People still go to mediums. People still try to find within the world of New Age phenomenon the proof that there's more to life than there really is? Or, in your opinion, based on the years of experience you've got, why or what are people looking for?
They want relief from their suffering, their emotional suffering, or they want some kind of guidance if they feel lost. Like if they've lost a loved one, it would be the first case, but if they're, marching down their life one step at a time and asking, is this all there is? They might want a little bit of direction. And there might be some benefit to some psychics. I haven't used psychics, but I have been around psychic mediums. I've been around trance channels the most. And that can be an interesting thing. But I think there was a famous one. I didn't know her, but she hung around California, Malibu. I think she was telling people that there was going to be some kind of change on the coast of California and had everybody move to Montana. And then nothing ever happened. So it's just such a strange thing. And how many swings at the baseball does the batter get? 3 strikes and you're out in baseball. But apparently these guys get as many pitches as they want to deliver. So
I'm still
not
trying
to say that they can't.
Go ahead. I'm still trying to figure out why people still revere Edgar Cayce.
Yeah, I mean, it's been many years since he said some of those things, and I don't know, maybe some of those people actually received some kind of health benefit when he gave them some kind of guidance on that. And then we also have the power of positive thinking for the people themselves at play. I mean, they say right now in the modern medical world, if you could come up with a drug that was as good as the placebo effect, which I think they're saying is like a third or something, you'd ticket to ride right there, So I don't know.
Well, what you were talking about a trance channeler, what is that?
Oh, it's where someone actually lets a spirit take over the voice and the body mannerism. Sometimes it's just the voice and they keep their eyes closed. Sometimes they open their eyes and walk around the room. So Jane Roberts and Seth was my first experience with that kind of thing. I didn't experience. I read the books that were dictated by Seth. And there was a good handful of books dictated by Seth. I found them very interesting. I thought he was very compassionate, very intelligent, and very wise. And so I did look at that. But at the same time, there are other trance channels that I've seen that were, well, I'll just say this. They left me very uncomfortable. It can be very much like people. Some people are good people, and it's easy to be around them, and others, you don't really want to be there. They've got some kind of hidden agenda, and they're looking to manipulate.
We had Sylvia Brown booked 3 months before she passed away. And I called up her agent and, I said, our condolences, but how come she didn't know she was going to die?
Yeah.
And the answer was, well, a psychic never knows anything about themselves. Their gift is not for them, it's for the world.
Well, I kind of hear what they're saying there, but I think they might know some things about themselves, but knowing when you're going to die would be kind of a difficult burden to carry. So I don't know.
Yeah. Where do you
but
see
the point?
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The point is, you just don't want to give over your control. You got to use your common sense. You got to see things from your perspective. I mean, if you were my best friend, I would know that you're looking out for me, but that
Sure.
doesn't mean I'm going to do what you say to do.
Of course not. Of course not. And once again, we used to have Friday night psychics. Excuse me. Where we'd open up the lines and we'd have psychics from all over the United States and Canada on every Friday night, a different psychic for every 2 hours, and we'd do 4 hours. And once again, I stopped it because the same people were calling in with the same blooming question. Like it became apparent that they did not want to take control of their own life.
Exactly. For some reason, they've got this out available to them, and they're taking it. They're saying, oh, good. It's not me. I don't have to worry.
Yeah.
I'll let this guy drive the car, you know. But that's not the point. You've got to learn how to drive your own car. You've got to make your own decisions. And if you don't believe that you have that ability, then your actions are going to follow that belief. If you believe that you can make a decision, you can make a wise decision, you can make a comfortable decision, and you can guide your own life in its own way, only you know where you should be going.
And you know, Thomas, I believe that belief is the strongest power in the universe. If you believe something, you will make it happen. Once again, the difference between a dream and reality is making it happen. The dream is the idea. The reality is the result of your time, your effort, your blood, your sweat, and your determination to make this thing happen. And
your emotions are also involved in
big
that.
time.
Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing that the emotions are involved.
Yeah. It's like you have these core beliefs, and if you have an idea about what you want to pursue, that's a goal. It's an idea. And I don't go quite as far as you. I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that that's the direction I should be going now. I don't know what I'm going to find when I get there necessarily. But I know that my enthusiasm about my passion is working to motivate me to actually take action and go in this direction in a joyful way and being available for kindness and compassion for the people I meet along the way.
I've gotten myself into more trouble by saying one simple statement. It's the weak in society who are preyed upon by the members of the New Age movement.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah, and the New Age movement has, in my opinion, distorted some of these things that get offered by sincere teachers, and they'll stretch them, and they make them much more palatable, much more marketable, much more seductive, I think is a better word for it. Seth never said you can have whatever you want. He said you create your own reality.
Exactly.
But he meant you create your own reality through the core beliefs that you have within the framework of the life that you've chosen from a spiritual perspective before you were born. So there's a certain theme that you're living out. It's not that you're wild to run completely free, but you do have a lot to say about what's happening now. But if you take that message and say you can be, do, and have whatever you want, now you've got a much more seductive message. And if you've got someone who's been successful with a book or with workshops or with private readings, and they have a lot of money, they're going to attract people that want money or relationships. It's love, money, and health. Those are the three driving factors that keep this industry going.
And it is an industry. That is the sad part about it. Over the years, and my producer said I've been doing the show now for 29 years. Thanks, Craig. I feel like an old man more than I did before. I have seen the tide turn from everyone wanting to help everybody for the right reason to, well, I've got to make a living. I've got bills to pay, to, whoa, for the psychic or the medium, they used to charge $35. We're now charging what? $200, $300 a minute.
Yeah.
An hour, I'm sorry. It's.
I was going to say $120 a session. Yeah, stuff like that. And more.
And more. It's really sad. And instead of going to these people and spending your hard-earned money, I know it's easier for you to accept that, it's not your fault. It's something in your past life that is causing you to react this way. Instead of, and all the hubbub that goes along with past life regressions. And I love putting them in a crossfire, in my crosshairs. Look in the mirror. The person that you're looking at has all the answers to all your problems. Face your demons. That's where the answers lie. They don't lie with someone else. You know, I talk to my wife. I talk to my friends if I've got something that I want, get feedback on. And, our kids, God bless them, one thing they always had from me was exactly what I thought, the truth.
Yeah.
Never sugarcoated it. Just like our daughter Amy, she used to love to put all these pictures all over her room, and I'd say, "Honey, what are you doing that for?" "Well, it's the secret. I see it, and it'll happen." And I would look out her bedroom window and I said, "Well, the Ferrari's still not in the driveway." And
exactly. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Is the secret was one of the most. Oh, I just wanted to touch on one point. You mentioned past lives.
Yeah.
And people saying it's something in my past life. This keeps them as a victim. It takes away them seeing themselves as responsible. And I don't want to blame the victim. I just want to point out that you are not the victim of your beliefs. You are the chooser of your beliefs. This is where your liberation is.
Well, okay.
Anyway,
we're going to take our final break, my friend, and it's always great talking to you. Thanks very much for sharing your time with us tonight.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right, Thomas, we'll be back on the other side of this break. Exonation, if you'd like more information about Thomas, his website is infinitelymystical.com, and we'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And don't forget, for all those people who crash and burn here on the show, they get a place of honor and distinction. They love the Internet so much that I have designated, and I have for a number of years now, a place where their name shines in the stars. It's called the X-Zone Order of Woo-Woos, and that's www.xzoneorderofwoos.com. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't you dare go away. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror.
We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Exonation, our guest this hour is Thomas Razzeto, and his website is infinitelymystical.com. First of all, Thomas, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Always great chatting with you, my friend.
Oh, thanks again for having me.
Anytime. We were just going to start something on the other side of the final break, and I stopped you, and old age is here. I can't remember what it was going to be.
Well, we were just touching on the fact that The Secret is probably one of the best packaged and distributed, with a streamed DVD book. Yeah. A book that was, I'd never seen a book that was physically like that. I mean, the production values on that book were just off the hook, and it's all adding to this seductive, you can be, do, and have whatever you want, and all you need to do is think about it. And have these visualizations and these other tools that they talk about. And there are some important things about the creative process, but this is not it. The most important thing about the creative process is to always be monitoring your emotional state of being and to do your best at being as happy as you can be most of the time, as kind as you can be most of the time, as peaceful as you can be most of the time. And that's really an important thing. From that comes your action, and from that will come your circumstances. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I see it that same way. So what are you working on now, Thomas?
I wrote this book, Living the Paradox of Enlightenment. It actually first came out about 5 years ago. And recently I released a second edition. And so I just polished that up a little bit, and I'm promoting it. And I really have to tip my hat to my mentor, Timothy Conway, who moved away from Santa Barbara. And so we were having weekly meetings, not just him and I, but he had a small group that would meet. And I would go to those, and that's where I got a lot of the things that I put in the book. And then I have another long chapter that also draws from the work from Bashar and Seth. Seth is channeled by Jane Roberts, and Bashar is channeled by Daryl Anka. So anyway, I have a little bit different take on this stuff. So some people are a little confused when they encounter my work, because it's like, what are you doing, man? I mean, we can't be, do, or have whatever you want. Normally I would just throw you in the trash, but maybe you have something intelligent to say about this subject. So I'm working on that.
It's pretty remarkable that people really believe that you can get without working for it. That just blows my mind. All throughout my life, nothing's come easy. Nothing comes easy in life. There's been struggles, there's been hard times, there have been failures. Mind you, whenever there's a failure, I always have looked at that as a lesson to success.
Yeah.
You've got to learn that lesson. And if you don't have the ability to learn that lesson and to get, to find out what the problem is, it's just like that circle of that little hamster's cage, the wheel's going around, but the hamster's been dead for 2 years. You need to understand or look at why it failed and what you can do to fix it. And then go forward. But so many people today just get to that wall or have that failure and, oh, I failed. I can't do it. I feel bad for those kind of people.
Yeah, and Rob, you know what? When that failure happens, if they also throw in a really strong, charged, negative emotion, that's going to reflect back. So if you see a so-called failure, and you can look in my life, most people would look at many things in my life and go, oh, failure here, failure there. But if you look at those things without having that strong negative emotional charge, saying, okay, I'm here right now, I'm not condemning what's happening, I'm going to emotionally accept what's happening, but I'm not going to keep it. I'm going to work on changing it. So that's the big difference. You're going to emotionally accept it, but you're going to work on changing it. That's really important.
For our listeners who may not know who Seth is, I would like it if you could, because we've talked about Seth a number of times this hour, and then it just dawned on me, well, there are listeners that we have now that we didn't have the last time you were on. And they may not who Seth is. So please share with our audience the story of Seth.
I found out about this in around 1980, but the books were originally released around 1970. A little bit before that for a book that wasn't fully dictated. But a woman named Jane Roberts and her husband, Robert Bess, were living in New York, and for some reason they started fiddling around with an Ouija board. They didn't believe in spirit communication. This board started to move messages around, and it progressed to the point where they weren't using the board and the pointer anymore, and she was just talking. And you can actually go on the internet, YouTube, and put in Jane Roberts and Seth, and you can actually see video. Now, of course, it's going to be black and white, fairly low quality, but you'll be able to get the mannerisms of Seth. You'll be able to tune in whether or not this is a match for you or whether you want to deal with any of this. But these books started to be dictated that were long. I had trouble reading these books. I had to put my thinking cap on to read these things. I know other people that said that they just gobbled them up in a flash, but I'm not a very fast reader to start with. But I really had to put my thinking cap on. So Seth dictated these books through Jane Roberts, and they were published mainstream. They sold millions and millions of copies, and I think she passed away in around 84. And so in around 1980 was when I started to read some of them. I have not read all of them. I do not consider myself an expert in it, but I'm familiar with enough of the material to draw on it and include that in my book.
So what do we know about Seth? Who was he in life? Or was he from another dimension? Was he from another planet? Was he a spirit that remained on this field, on this realm, in this realm? And how do we describe him?
Well, I think he described himself as a disincarnate entity who had been incarnate many, many times. And I don't know much about those past lives. I think he said that he and Seth and Robert, her husband, all shared some lives together or something to this effect. And that's why there's a bond. One thing he did talk about was how reincarnation is it is an individual thing, but individuals stay with groups. So a family will reincarnate with their roles switched or somewhat expanded, or it's very interesting. And he even talked about larger groups. One of his books was about mass events, where he talks about more difficult subjects like catastrophes and war and things like that. But I don't know much about Seth himself as a person. And Jane Roberts, she was pretty simple-minded. I shouldn't say simple-minded in the sense of not very smart, but she was just focused on her work with that, and she did her own writing. She did some poetry and some other writing. And they were simple people, I think is what I'm trying to say. They just worked on this. They lived in they weren't very presumptuous. They just did their work. And people would really put themselves out to go and visit some of these sessions. And there's some people that you can find that are promoting this work much more heavily than I am. They're much more of an expert. They've read the books. They give workshops on it, things like that. So you can find out a lot.
What is your take on reincarnation?
Some of the most interesting reincarnation stories that I read about came through Ian Stevens. I believe it's even Ian Stevens. It might be Ian Stevens' son. I always get that confused. And he is retired, and he's been followed up by Jim Tucker, who they had worked together, and he handed off the reign of the work. But some of the stories that they tell are just remarkable. And a young child, 5 years old, remembering being a Navy pilot on an aircraft carrier in World War II, and remembering the names of his friends and the name of the ship, and the parents not knowing how to handle this story, and but working with the son and taking him to actually meet some of the people that were on the aircraft carrier, And these stories are very interesting to me because they seem to have very specific memories. And it also seems to be healing for them when they clear these memories and go, that is not who you are now. Because there was a lot of fear with this young 5-year-old boy about he would wake up at night with a nightmare, being in an airplane on fire, crashing, you know.
Wow.
And so the healing came when he realized that this isn't happening to him now. So there are many other stories about that. Sometimes people find out that the way they died was very traumatic and was leading to alcoholism in this current life. And once they recognized this linkage, they could let go of that causal factor, and they no longer had problems with alcohol.
Listen, the time is coming very close where you and I must say so long. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's always a pleasure talking to you, Thomas. And like I said to you during one of the breaks, we'll have to have you on more often. But let our listeners know about your new book and how they can get a copy of it.
Amazon.com, Living the Paradox of Enlightenment. And my name again, Thomas Razzeto. And the website, infinitelymystical.com. There's a lot of free essays on that website. You'll find out from reading those free essays if the book is a good match for you, and so that'll make it really easy for you.
Thomas, do me a favor. Take care of yourself and keep the great work up that you do.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rob.
You take care, my good friend. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Thomas, he's got a great website. He's a great author. Visit www.infinitely, I'll get this right yet. My God, poor guy. He's probably saying, what the hell's wrong with him tonight? infinitelymystical.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, you can get your complimentary copy of the X Chronicles newspaper each and every month with my compliments and the compliments of our advertisers at www.xchroniclesnewspaper.com. That's XCHRONICLES newspaper.com.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide.
You have heard of the X-Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X-Zone, Sci-Fi, and Horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka,
X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.